right, what's up, everybody? 2 days until the trade deadline. We got a lot to discuss, a lot of different rumors. We obviously have a trade that just happened, and we'll get right into it. Make sure you're subscribed. If you're watching this on YouTube, feel free to ask some questions. Anything about any frameworks you're interested in seeing if it's possible. I'm willing to do that. I'll be on for a little while. So we'll touch on the Caleb Martin trade that just happened. Main things I want to go over is that and some of the Warrior stuff in regards to KD particularly, and some of the other names that they've been linked to. And also I want to go over Lakers bigs. I want to go over some of the big guys that they've been linked to and go over like who I think they could realistically get. So without further ado, I'll start with the Caleb Martin trade. So let me see if I could just pull up the details. I like to show them. So with the Sixers, I was kind of wondering if they're going to do something like this with their season looking kind of lost. Seemed like they were going to do some sort of a soft retool. So they went ahead and traded Caleb Martin to the Mavs. They got Quentin Grimes and the second round pick in exchange. So I'll start with the Sixers side of things. I think I have a lot more to say on the Mavs side. So let's see. The Sixers, pretty unexpected turn that they'd be in this position given everything they did this offseason. The whole time we're thinking that they're building up all these mid-sized salaries like Caleb Martin and KJ Martin. Maybe they could package those guys to do some type of consolidation trade, bring in a high-level forward like a Dorian Finney-Smith or even a Cam Johnson type. And now that they're still 10 games below 500, I know they had a little nice run last month. Not like a couple weeks ago, but it was just like a 4-game winning streak. For some reason, I thought it was like longer than that. But yeah, it makes sense. I think they're clearly not necessarily punting the season. We'll see what the rest of the trade deadline looks like. But it seems like they are going to accumulate some assets and save some money, which it's understandable. So, because this was their situation, they're in the tax before all this. They're over the first apron, so they don't really have much trade flexibility. And I'm a little surprised they traded Caleb Martin. I thought maybe they would probably try to get off KJ or Andre Drummond if you're trying to do this type of thing, get some seconds and save money, but not a very strong seller's market, especially considering what Luka just went for, what De'Aaron Fox just went for. So the trade mechanics works like this for the Sixers. They're just they're decreasing payroll. They go from Caleb Martin's $8.2 million to Grimes's $4.3. So you just do that math, and they get a little trade exception, about $4 million. And they are now below the first apron, which I don't think is going to be too significant other than now they could actually get into the buyout market. They were over the first apron. They couldn't sign players over that mid-level who had a salary over the mid-level exception. And now they can. We'll see if there is any luck there, any interest from any guys. We'll see if it even becomes available. But that's the biggest thing of significance. Although if they do save more money, and I'll get to this, then they could increase payroll in a trade, since that would hard cap them to that first apron. They're not hard capped to anything right now. But I would assume that they're not going to want to increase any more payroll. If anything, they're going to want to keep reducing, because now they're about $7.1 million below the tax. And I would guess, kind of like they did last trade deadline, they're going to do something else to get below it, maybe a couple moves. So what can that be? I've seen a lot of people in my mentions talk about them doing Drummond and maybe a couple minimum guys like Yabusele and Reggie Jackson. Other than Yabusele, I don't think there's going to be much interest for teams to take on either of those guys. Maybe though they could get a little something for KJ Martin. I think they're not done. I think they'll do another something else to save some money and try to get some more draft picks. The Sixers have a pretty decent amount of draft equity just in quantity of second round picks, of not too many first round picks. They do have those extra Clippers picks that they got from the Harden trade. Now, there is a little bit of a downside to the Sixers doing more trades like that, especially if they want to move off of a like a Kelly Oubre or KJ Martin. That is that if they're going to try to compete next year, and if they still have all three of Joel Embiid, Paul George, Tyrese Maxey, that's a very top-heavy payroll. How are you going to get another starter-level guy in the mid-teens or early 20s, another starter-level player who makes that much? You just got off Caleb Martin, who was making around $8 million. You're going to lose more of that tradable salary to try to make that type of move next summer. So let's see what they end up doing. Maybe they don't. If they do more of these types of trades, they don't take back expiring contracts. With Quentin Grimes, he's expiring. He'll be restricted. He can be used in sign-in trades. So, they still have that if they're trying to make some type of trade match for bringing back a starter level player. But I'm going to be very interested to see what else the Sixers do. Especially, we've seen Paul George's name recently, and there's a lot of mixed reporting on that. Some are saying that the Sixers would like to just get off that contract, but there's other reports that they supposedly told them they wouldn't trade him in the first year and that it would take a lot to get him. But I think that Paul George contract is far away, in my mind, the worst contract in the league. Another 3 years, over $50 million. Each one's ascending. Player option at the end. And he's dropped off significantly. So if the Sixers could get off him, just get a clean slate from that, and maybe get some more role players kind of in the same realm as some of these guys that they've got over here, and still have the flexibility, still keep the option to do more trades next summer, and obviously they save a lot of money, I think that'd be great. I've seen the Warriors potentially being linked to him. I think if the Sixers can get off Paul George now, I think they should just do it. So I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but I just feel like a lot more is on the table now, just given that it's pretty clear, okay, they are doing some sort of soft retool. They're going to save some money, move off some role players. Feels like Embiid's knee's just not going to be healthy enough for them to do anything, make any meaningful run this year. For the Mavs, I don't quite understand this. And when I did my Luka stream, I still hadn't really processed everything, but I still, there's nothing that really makes sense to me about this Luka trade. I saw a clip of a Mavs fan at that Mavs protest at the arena that happened yesterday or 2 days ago, and he put it pretty well, where he said, even if the Mavs win a championship with this group, to him and many other fans, it's not going to feel like it's not going to matter as much because Luka was their guy. It had to be with him, and I kind of get that. So the Mavs, they did this trade. They got below the tax. It seems like for the most part they were done, but they definitely needed to do a little something else. And there was some reporting by Michael Scotto that with the addition of Max Christie, Quentin Grimes becomes a lot more expendable, which, okay, I get that. And they do need a bigger wing. And if they do something, I guess it makes sense to trade PJ Washington now, just because he is definitely the more superfluous player now with the addition of Anthony Davis. If he's going to play with two centers, maybe they'll try PJ at the 3, but I just can't really see that working all that well. But he's having an amazing year. So if they can get something for him, capitalize on him now, maybe they'll end up getting more for him than that first round pick they originally gave up. So here they do the trade, and it puts them back into the tax, about 4.4 million above. Which, okay, I'm a little confused about that. Maybe, so I would guess they have something else lined up, right up against the first apron. They're hard cap, so they can't really increase payroll now. Any other trade they do has to see them decreasing payroll. Maybe there's a Dwight Powell, Dante Exum type trade, something a little smaller scale. They could combine them, bring back like a $7 million player, still stay below the first apron, but we'll see what happens with their tax situation, because I thought they would stay below the tax. So Caleb Martin has a trade bonus that will increase his salary up to $9.2 million. And that will increase his salary all throughout the next few seasons. We'll see if he waives a portion of that. Anthony Davis ended up waiving his. That's actually the second trade bonus Anthony Davis ended up waiving. He did the same thing for the Lakers, helped them with their cap space situation in 2019. Maybe the Mavs couldn't get Caleb Martin to do the same thing. If he doesn't waive it, then they're going to have to take Caleb Martin into one of their trade exceptions, because Quentin Grimes for Caleb Martin, which at what would be 9.2 million, does not match. So I've got them taking Caleb Martin to the Maxi Kleber trade exception, and then they just create a new one. So they still have all these extra trade exceptions, which right now they can't use because they're right up against the first apron. But just gives them a little more flexibility to do a slightly imbalanced trade, just like the one they did. But honestly, I just don't understand this for the Mavs. I don't understand why they're trading a player who's arguably just as good as Caleb Martin. They're the same height. I understand Caleb Martin has played up pretty well positionally, but I don't understand why they're trading the younger player cheaper, and he's going to be restricted Quentin Grimes. So maybe ends up getting like the same type of contract as Caleb Martin. I don't understand it for the Mavs. Their whole decision making over the past few days has been it's an understatement how puzzling it's been the past few days. And they gave up a second round pick. The Mavs are out of second round picks to trade. They've traded every single second round pick they've had over the next 7 drafts. So they can still do something else. They've got first round picks. Their first round pick this year, 2031, and a 2029 from the Lakers. And they have like one swap they could trade. So let's see. I wonder how aggressive they're going to be. Like clearly the window is now and next year. If after you bring in, you age your roster by 6 years by bringing in Anthony Davis. So yeah, the time is now. Anthony Davis is about to be 32. Kyrie Irving is about to be 33. Got Klay Thompson there. All right. Just do whatever, trade the picks, see what else you can bring in to, really maximize their window. Cause it's championship or bust this year or next year, realistically, maybe a year after that. But it's hard to tell. So let's see. So now I'll just touch quickly on some other rumors. So there is some stuff about the Hawks potentially going after a high salaried guy like a Brandon Ingram, like a Paul George, which to me sounds like they're really trying to do their best to save this season. And by saving this season, that mostly translates to not conveying a valuable first round pick to the Spurs, because they've been skidding ever since Jalen Johnson got hurt. He's out for the year. And now that first round pick for the Spurs that they're sending out is looking pretty valuable. That's like projected to be 10th right now. Maybe that goes a little higher. And they owe a swap to the Spurs next year as well, and a 27 first round pick. So the Hawks can't just be bad. They can't just bottom out because they don't have their first round pick to benefit from it. But if they're going to bring in a guy like Brandon Ingram, okay, maybe that propels them back into the playing range, gets them to like be the 7 or 8 seed again. But it's going to require them realistically to trade both DeAndre Hunter and Bogdan Bogdanovic, unless he's going to be a rental. So I say this because I'm looking at their payroll for next year, and they have about like 15 million below the tax. I should probably change this because I've got them getting the Kings pick this year. I think after the De'Aaron Fox trade, their Kings probably don't make the play. But let's see. It's like top 12 protected. Maybe they end up getting it just on the fringe of the protection. So let's say like 15 to 20 million below the tax. So you only have enough room right now where, okay, you're going to cut Cody Zeller, obviously. Maybe you could cut Mo Gay. And you have room to bring in a backup center. It could be bringing back Capella or Nance. And that's about it. You cannot trade, hypothetically, Capella and Nance, who are expiring salaries, bring in, and then, one more guy like a Bogdanovich, bring in Ingram, and then bring him back, assuming they're not going to want to pay any tax next year. So I think the realistic move is that they would package Hunter and Bogdanovich, who have long-term money for next year. But that's going to have to be an expanded deal because there's no way I could see the Pelicans taking in either of those guys. Maybe just one of them, but they've got their payroll situation in flux as well. So then the other question is, what are you giving up if you're the Hawks to do that? I think Ingram's value, just not because the player he is, just how little players have been going for relative to what a player of that caliber has gone for in recent years, I feel like maybe just one first round pick will be enough to get Ingram. Maybe you can trade one of these ones to get him. But like I said, I think you're gonna have to expand that trade because I do not see the Pelicans taking back both of those guys, maybe one of them. But I think ideally the Pelicans are gonna want to just save as much money as possible because they're already gonna be like 22 million below the tax. Maybe they could bring back one of them, roll back this roster, and then see what they can do later. So, yeah, I'm curious to see how the Hawks end up pulling it off, if those types of talks are even serious. This morning, we got a report about the Bucks and Wizards talking about Kyle Kuzma for Chris Middleton, which is interesting. I'll just say, for the most part, whenever something leaks on the Bucks, it never really happens. Everything the Bucks do, for the most part, is come out of surprise. Like the Lillard trade, the Drew Holiday trade. I remember last year was leaked about how they were talking to the Mavs about Bobby Portis for Grant Williams. That didn't end up happening. A lot of the stuff that's already been leaked about what they might end up doing ahead of this trade deadline never ended up happening. Bradley Beal, that was, I guess, maybe not even true. But their whole situation is that they're probably going to try to want to save money. I guess there's not really a big move left they can make now that Levine's off the table. We'll see about Jimmy Butler. It's really, I think that's the big move they can realistically make. But they're going to want to save some money anyways. Seems like these Middleton rumors might have to stem from the fact maybe they feel like that knee is so bad that it's just time to get off him. But ideally, they're going to want to at least get below the second apron to avoid having any draft pick penalties next year, not have their 2032 pick frozen, and also save some money. So let's say they actually do this trade. Let's say there's actually something to be done. They bring in Kuzma. He's got a trade bonus and some incentives. I've adjusted it. This is what his salary would be if traded to the Bucks today. And it still doesn't quite put them right below. It gives them pretty close to the second apron. Now, there have to be some more pieces involved to fit the two-team trade. The Wizards need to send a little something back, and then the Bucks would have to send a little something back. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I love this for the Bucks. They lose a lot more. They lose another shooter in Middleton. They get a historically non-shooter in Kuzma. So if that's something they're interested in, I wonder if they're just going to try to bring in someone just mainly to reset the age a little bit. Like Middleton's early 30s, try to bring in Kuzma, who's a guy who's like maybe closer to his like late 20s. Maybe they would do something like that, like a Middleton plus Portis type thing to bring in an Ingram, who's also not really a good shooter, even though he's having his best shooting year this year. Yeah, I wonder if the Bucks are just going to do something that not necessarily has fit in mind, but just something to get something for that Middleton salary slot. But then the other thing is, what are the Bucks giving up? I suppose they have to give up something to the Wizards if they were to do something like this. I don't think they're going to trade that 2031 first. The Bucks are a team that I've speculated they could be doing a deal kind of like what the Suns just did with the Hornets, where they traded one first round pick, their 2031, for multiple ones to be able to open up more trade avenues. I would think that makes a little more sense for the Bucks if they're going to trade Middleton and first round equity, if they can at least break that 2031 and then trade a lesser first along with Middleton to do something like that. So yeah, we'll see what they end up doing. I think they'll definitely do something though, just to save a little bit of money. They probably don't duck the tax, but maybe just get below that second apron. Okay, so Warriors. There was some interesting reporting yesterday, several reports, mainly on what the Warriors are trying to do. They're basically trying to get just about anybody, any big name, any star. So I want to pull out the report from The Athletic. Give me a moment. So here's by Anthony Slater of The Athletic. Yeah, so there's talk about Jimmy Butler, and I'm starting to wonder if Jimmy Butler even gets traded at this point, where now the recent report is that he told the Warriors he doesn't want to extend with them, which tells me maybe the Warriors proposed, if they got in contact with them, that they proposed, hey, we'll do some type of like lower non-max extension, something in the 30s could make a little more sense. And then that's the only way I would see why Jimmy would tell the Warriors he's not interested in joining them. And then there's mention of, I don't know if it's in here, but there's mention of Paul George. Someone mentioned Paul George. I don't know if it's in here, which would, tying back to what I was saying about the Sixers, that would be a pretty big, they'd be bailing out the Sixers if they take on that contract. If I'm the Warriors, I would be wanting to take back an asset if I'm taking on Paul George. And then there's obviously LeBron, which I wouldn't rule out. I understand LeBron has that no trade clause. I genuinely think he does want to trade with Luka, but again, like, I don't know. You never know. You just never know. But I would bet LeBron stays. I think the Warriors, though, if they do want him, they can make a pretty fair offer. And then KD. So KD, Warriors have reportedly inquired about his availability. Unclear how Durant would feel about if he's open to a reunion with the Warriors. There was some other subsequent, so they cite a report by Jake Fisher that he was saying how the Suns are believed to be listening to pitches on Kevin Durant, but that it would cost a fortune. I don't see the Suns getting close to what they gave up for Durant. They ended up trading what's turning out to be 10 to 11 first-round picks of value. When you look at the 4 first-round picks they traded, Mikal Bridges, who the Nets turned into 5, and then Cam Johnson, who could be turned into 1 or 2 first-round picks. Even when you look at what the Warriors have to offer, I think at most they can offer like 3 first-round picks in Kuminga. That is not touching what the Suns originally gave up. But it feels like there's a domino effect from the Luka trade, the De'Aaron Fox trade, where the Lakers, your mileage can vary on how much better, if they are better this season. Obviously, they still need to get a big, which we'll look into shortly. But I don't know. I feel like they can easily make the conference finals if they just get they don't even need to get a high paid starting quality center big. They just need just someone who's healthy, just good enough. We'll get into those. And then the Spurs, I think they're going to get in the play-in now. I feel like, especially them, that really balanced out their roster. They can pass the Suns now, and the Suns just They just had another rough loss to the Blazers last night. Yeah, I mean, Fisher said it perfectly. How can the Suns not afford to listen to KD offers? So we'll see what happens there. But at the same time, just with the Suns, with how they're just 2 or 1 game above 500, and now the Spurs looking like they could potentially pass them. We'll see how the Mavs look. I would think that they're still going to make the playoffs. And as far as the Jimmy Butler stuff, I don't know. We'll see. With Kevin Durant, anything can happen. Has requested, has left teams whenever. Just felt like it's time to move on. Maybe there's if they don't get Jimmy Butler, could that accelerate a potential trade for Durant? Maybe he would want to get out. We'll see what ends up happening. As far as a trade, I would think it's going to be like a 4 or 5 teamer. You're going to have the Suns saving a ton of money. You can have like a 4 or 5 team trade. The Suns probably wouldn't get below the tax, let alone the second apron. But then if there's something where they could just take on a bunch of expirings, maybe they get Kuminga, a first round pick, get some teams like the Bulls and Raptors involved. I'm not going to put any fake trades. You can look at my past streams to see what I put together where I've had scenarios where the Warriors can get in Zach LaVine and Vucevic, or Jimmy Butler and Vucevic. They could do the same thing, bring in KD with Vucevic. They would just have to do like a pretty imbalanced 6-for-1 type trade, where they're trading just about every single player. Like, here, I'll just pull up their sheet so we can make it more clear. If they're going to do something where they bring in Durant and Vucevic, they're pretty much trading, obviously, one of Wiggins and Draymond, and then all of these guys. Not necessarily for the salary matching component, but just because they're going to need... They're a hard cap to that first apron. They're going to have to stay below it. And the only way you're going to be able to do that with $55 million Steph Curry, $51 million Durant, $24 million Draymond Green, and a $20 million Vucevic is to move off all these guys. So you're going to need a lot of teams involved to take off, for them to take these guys all. I would guess realistically, though, if the Warriors do succeed in getting Kevin Durant, that they probably don't get another... go after a high-paid center like Vucevic. It's just, I think they'd like to maybe keep like 1 or 2 of these guys after a Kevin Durant trade. We'll see what ends up happening. I'm keeping my eye on this one. With KD, you never know. All right, and then let's get to the fun part. Lakers. So, I want to go over bigs. They're going to do something. They are going to get a big man of some sort. Here's their payroll right now. So a couple things to note that I don't know if I mentioned fully in the emergency stream when Luka got traded, but they are now officially hard capped to the second apron. I know that when LeBron re-signed with the Lakers and he took slightly less than the max, it was so they could stay below the second apron. Not necessarily because they weren't allowed to exceed it, just because that's the objective. Most teams want to at least stay below the second apron. So they theoretically could have stayed like just below the second apron, and then after the trade deadline, if there's someone they wanted to get in the buyout market, they could have signed him and exceeded the second apron. That's not a problem. But now they can't. And the reason for that is because as part of the Luka trade, they aggregated Max Christie and Jalen Hood-Schifino to get Maxi Kleber, to get his $11 million. So just because of that aspect, which was a cost-saving move from the Mavs, which I understand the Lakers compromising on that, taking on a bad salary like that. And there's an update. Maxi Kleber is now going to miss like another 2 months before he gets evaluated. So now they cannot exceed that second apron at all. So if the Lakers want to be positioned for the buyout market, they're going to want to have a little bit of room below the second apron. And And for the most part, any trade they do is probably going to have them decrease payroll, since that's all they're allowed to do since they're over the first apron. After trading their 29 first round pick, they have 1 first round pick available left to trade, their 2031. I don't think they're going to trade it. I would be very surprised if they do. And I think the main reason for that is because they're going to be planning long term to try to get their next co-star for Luka. And that doesn't sound crazy anymore because they just got Luka. So I don't think they'll trade that. I don't think they'll trade Reeves right now, even though you can say that there's just too many overlapping qualities between Luka and Reeves and LeBron. And you can make an argument, why don't you trade Reeves for a quality center like a Miles Turner? Okay, but if the Lakers are going to get that big fish in mind, whoever that second star may be, they're going to have to hold on to their top valuable players or top valuable picks. So I don't think there's anyone really on the market worth that 2031 first. I think they keep it for now. And then they have 1 second round pick left to trade. It's in this upcoming draft. I think it's their own second round pick. But then the more interesting thing that I haven't really seen anyone get into, and I haven't brought it up yet, is they have 3 first round pick swaps they could play with. And those aren't nothing. I know that it sounds kind of like a fake first, especially because a lot of times they don't convey. Most of the time they don't convey. But last year, swaps were more involved in trades. The Mavericks traded a swap to the Thunder to help facilitate the trade that got him Daniel Gafford. The Clippers traded a swap to the Thunder as well to help facilitate the Harden trade. The Thunder are mainly the teams that are really liking swaps. But I don't think there's anyone they can get from the Thunder there for their swaps, but maybe there's like a 3-4 team trade that can work where the Thunder facilitate. But either way, those are I think might be the key for the Lakers to get their option, their short-term option at center, because they're going to get a big man. I'm not doubting that at all. They're going to get someone. But let's go through the names, because I'm going to go in order. I've got a list in front of me of like the highest paid guys to lower paid guys that are available. Right off the top, I don't think it's going to be DeAndre Ayton. I've seen his name. He makes just too much money, $34 million. So that means that you're going to have to trade, realistically, like Rui and Reeves. And now keep in mind, the other thing you should guys know about the Lakers situation is they've made a couple trades recently. They brought in Dorian Finney-Smith, Maxi Kleba. They brought in Shake Milton and Markieff Morris. None of those players can be aggregated. They can't combine those players' salaries and add them in addition to other salaries to get a more expensive player. So if they wanted to do Rui Hachimura and Dorian Finney-Smith for DeAndre Ayton, or Rui Hachimura and Maxi Kleba and like Christian Wood to get DeAndre Ayton, they can't do that. So not only are their trade options a little more limited for the salary matching component, it just makes a lot of getting these more expensive centers way more unrealistic. So Ayton right at the top, that's not happening. Then I go a little lower. Nick Claxton makes about 20. You know what? I'll just put this list in front of you guys. I don't know why I'm not showing it. Give me a sec. Boom. Okay. It's a bit of a mess here. But got some notes, as you can see. Nick Claxton, $27.5 million. My feeling is that's going to require something like the 31 first, which I don't see the Lakers doing, especially considering that they're going to have to give up one of these bad salaries. That's the other thing, is that Rui's the only guy who's got, like, in my eyes, slightly positive to neutral value. If you're trading Vincent, Jared Vanderbilt, like those, that's the other really hard aspect of this. If they're going to go after one of these more mid-salaried guys, is that not only do Lakers have to give up something to get the center, but they got to give up something to get off this bad money. So, and it's debatable if Jared Vanderbilt's bad money just with the injuries. I think when he's healthy, he's worth that contract, but he's just been too injured. Yeah, here's just some Luka stuff I had before. So, Nick Claxton, it would probably have to be like Rui and Vincent just to get the money going. But if I'm the Nets, I just don't think they're going to want anything less than that 31 first. Maybe the Lakers, like I said about the Bucks, could try to do the type of trade where they trade their 31 first to a team like the Thunder, to a team like the Nets, to break up that 31 first into multiple firsts like the Suns just did with the Jazz. But I still don't. I think the Nets are looking for a quality first. I would be a little surprised if it's Nick Claxton. John Collins, $26.5 million. So you're probably going to have to do something like Rui and Vincent and a swap. I think that might be fair, a little realistic, but also not quite the rim protector that they need. But I think it could be a little realistic, but I think I'd rather just hold on to Rui at that point. Capella, I don't see it, primarily because the Hawks are going to want expiring salaries, most likely. The Lakers don't have any expiring salary offers. That's another component of this, is that for some of these big men, they're going to need to, they don't have any expiring offer. And a lot of these teams don't have much flexibility. They're going, so like the Hawks, they're going to want expirings most likely for Capella. The Lakers don't have that. I don't see that happening. And I think now that is a realistic option, but then again, 22.3 million. Again, you're going to have to probably part with Rui. I don't think that's worth it. Vucevic, same thing. You're going to have to part with Rui probably, or at least do Vincent, Vanderbilt in a swap, but that's not a rim protector. They need rim protection. Okay, so Turner, I just bring him up because he's in the same salary range. I think that's probably going to cost a combination of Reeves and Rui, maybe that 2031 pick. But the big issue with the Pacers agreeing to anything is that you're going to have to find them a center. They're going to need a stretch center. And I don't know who that is. I don't know who is that exact type of center that can replicate what Turner brings to them. There isn't one. So I would just not even consider Turner. I would be very surprised if the Lakers somehow get Turner. Pirtle, Lakers' interest in him was reported today. Just kind of hard to make it work for the Raptors, just as far as the value. Because keep in mind, the Raptors gave up what turned out to be a very valuable first-round pick to get him. Became the selection that was Rob Dillingham, the 8th pick. Lakers can easily make the money work, and I don't think the Raptors will have too much of a problem bringing back some guys like Gabe Vincent or Jared Vanderbilt that extend the next year. But I don't see the Lakers trading their 31 first for him, and I don't know if swaps are enough for the Raptors to do something like this. So I don't see it being Pirtle. Now, Nurkic, I'm just going to bring him up because of the draft pick potential that the Lakers can get, where there can be like a 3-team trade where the Suns get Vanderbilt, the Lakers get Nurkic, send out Vincent, and then get a first-round pick for doing this because the Suns have those extra first-round picks, and then an extra team takes on Vincent. So the Suns save a ton of money, and the Lakers get a big man, but they're taking on an extra year of Nurkic. But maybe that's kind of worth it if they're getting a first-round pick back to just replenish your draft pick equity for that next potential big trade. And, with Luka, he has a knack for bringing the most out of players. I'm not saying he's going to revitalize Nurkic or anything like that. But if you're getting an asset for him and you're mostly sending out equally bad salaries, might be worth a consideration. I would definitely, that's something I wouldn't just, say no to, hang up the phone. If you can get like a first, maybe 2 for taking on Nurkic, I think that might be worth it. Stewart, I just bring up, I don't think the Pistons have any reason to trade him, but at that salary, that's like exactly what the Lakers need for over the next year or two. before they get into 2026 and have could potentially have cap space. I mean, they can even keep a guy like Stewart. Here we get into the guys where they can keep these guys long term at these salary ranges and still potentially have max cap space in 2026 to go after someone. I would guess I would have to be like Rui for Stewart. I don't know if that's completely fair, but I think you're getting kind of close. I don't know if the Pistons would want to do that. Maybe you got to expand the trade, but that's something where I could see the Lakers close to getting something done if they like Isaiah Stewart. It's just a matter of what are the Pistons looking for Stewart. But I think they would, if I'm the Pistons, I think they'd rather just keep Stewart. Mitchell Robinson finally cleared for contact. They can get it done with Vincent and 2 minimum salaries. I don't think a second round pick would be enough. Probably going to have to do a swap. And I don't think it's a 2-team trade. It's probably going to have to require a third team. Especially since both the Knicks and Lakers are in the apron. I wonder if the Knicks would be interested in like Mitch and Precious for Rui, as long as the Knicks can get a big man back and maybe the Lakers can get like a decent wing back. That probably doesn't happen, but just something that came to mind. I would guess Mitchell Robinson doesn't get traded. The Knicks still really, they could use a guy like him right now, and that might be their big trade deadline addition, getting a guy like Mitchell Robinson healthy. Steven Adams, I just saw The Athletic, Sam Amick report that they're interested in him. Now we're getting to the guys where it's really easy to acquire them. You can get it done with like Vincent and a second. Now, this is definitely a 3-teamer. For example, I could see it being the Rockets. Let's say they wanted to go from Steven Adams to Robert Williams, and they trade like a couple seconds to the Blazers. The Blazers take on Vincent, and then the Lakers take on Adams. I could see it working some way like that instead of a 2-team trade. If the Lakers are getting Adams, I would guess 1 second should be enough. Haven't really paid attention to how he's been doing. I know he's been. He hasn't played all that much this year, though. And then, look, you can easily get Olynyk. You can easily get Portis. Maybe, especially if the Bucks are doing a big trade, they have to send Portis out. But again, none of them are rim protectors. Robert Williams is a player who, from people I've spoken to, it just seems to make a lot of sense just because of the framework. It's really easy to do. You could do Vincent and a 1 minimum guy. But I think figuring out the value on the Blazers end is very difficult. One, I don't think 1 second's getting it done. And I think a swap might be a little too rich for Robert Williams. And then also, the Blazers just don't seem to want any like draft equity. If you see like what they got from the Dame trade, the CJ McCollum trade, it's all players based for the most part. Them consolidating some of those picks they got from the Dame trade to Denny Avdia. So this would definitely need to be, I think it'd probably have to be a multi-team trade because I'm guessing the Blazers are going to want some players that can help them improve, especially now that they've won like 8 of their last 9. And I don't necessarily buy it that there's anything super significant to look at there, that they're going to make the plan or anything like that. But just as far as what they might be looking for, I could see them taking this winning streak, this stretch, and wanting to build off that. Chris Boucher, I think you don't trade a swap for him. You trade a second or 2, but the Lakers only have 1. I would guess the Raptors get better offers for him. Jonas Valanciunas, I just think they need rim protection. I wouldn't go for him. Daron Sharp, I mentioned him, probably takes 2 minimums, but I think if I'm the Nets, I want to swap. Walker Kessler, I don't think that's happening. Mainly because they just did that trade, and with the Luka trade involving the Jazz, I feel like even though the reporting is that, okay, so like I'll say this, like on one hand, usually when trades happen involving 2 teams that are linked to a certain player, okay, then that player's probably not getting traded to that team anymore. So they did a trade with the Jazz, didn't involve Walker Kessler. You would think that, okay, he's not coming to the Lakers. But at the same time, apparently the Jazz only learned that Luka was getting traded 30 minutes before they got included in it. So maybe but at the same time I talked about it. I don't see the Jazz trading him. Landale, Drummond, they can easily get those guys. Maybe don't even have to. They probably got to trade a second still if they're trading a guy like Vincent, but not threading the needle. So if I had to guess, I won't say like definitively who I think they'll get, but if I had to do like a top 3 ranking of the bigs I see most likely coming to the Lakers, I'd probably go Steven Adams 1. I would probably go Jonas Valanciunas 2, as drawn out as that has been. And then probably, I want to say Nurkic 3. I don't think I doubt the Lakers are seriously interested in that. But again, they could afford to have Nurkic one more year, get a pick back. Maybe Luka can get him to play much better. I just feel like everything else is either too rich or too expensive to be realistic. So yeah, that's everything I got. Let's see if anything happened while I was doing this. Nope. All right. So yeah, I'll be pretty flexible. If there's anything else to talk about, any emergency stuff to get on, I will just hop on the stream. I'm debating doing a stream in the lead up to the trade deadline where you guys can just follow me. It'd be like hours just reacting to trades right as they happen, maybe even see me break them down in real time. We'll see. I'm still undecided about that, but I'm definitely going to be pretty active that day. I'll definitely be on tomorrow night. There should be plenty to talk about. So yeah, we'll see what happens. So that's everything. Please follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky. I'm going to be reacting to trades immediately, right when they happen. A lot of the salary cap analysis. Subscribe to YouTube. So if you're watching this on Twitter, subscribe to YouTube where you can catch everything, get alerts whenever I'm about to go on stream, and subscribe to Third Apron. I just released my article about what the Lakers' outlook is, especially how they're going to pursue another star, most likely, how they could do that, and how LeBron factors in if he's going to take a pay cut. I get into different scenarios. And I'm also going to have something either today or tomorrow on the Spurs. Kind of similar thing about their outlook, having Fox, and what else they can do on top of that, because they still have the flexibility to make another big trade, and they could potentially even have significant cap space in 2026 to go after another guy. Maybe there's no guarantee Luka is going to stay with the Lakers just yet, but maybe they want to keep that option open. I'm sure Luka's going to extend with the Lakers, but just in case. All right, I'll see you.